Hello and welcome to Talking with Famous People. My name is host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People, and I am here today with an array of famous people in attendance, namely famous person Zach Psych Attack, famous person Rooster 6, Mega Bro, famous person Enfp Listener, famous person Hami, Contract Under Guadalupe First Seal, and famous person Callum. We are primarily enjoying a chat-driven interactivity today. I've got introverts in the room, and thus the nature of the media is colored accordingly. Okay, so in the last video, I talked about decision-making processes for the INTP and INFJ. The next types I'd like to do, I think, are the ENFP and the ENFJ. So for the ENFP, let's do them first. I've had some experience dealing with ENFPs through talking with famous people. Particularly, the one who stands out is Eccentric M, who seems a reflective ENFP. One of the things about a lot of ENFPs is they can become consumed with partying. Like ENTPs, they're prone to addiction. And this is related very much to their decision-making process. So, like the ENTP, they lead with a dominant extroverted perceiving function, extroverted intuition. So, their first impulse is to act metaphysically. However, they end up being, in general, substantially less impulsive than ENTPs because their second function, their judging function, is not one that operates removed from immediacy in the way that TI does. So there's not a tape delay between considering an action, doing the action, judging the action, and perceiving the impacts. Instead, ENFPs learn to be much more careful with their action unless they are rolling. If they're rolling, like going through an any bender where you're just like, fuck it, more drugs, let's roll. If they're doing that, then they're not, that's a different story. But if they're a relatively healthy place, then the ENFP has learned that, in fact, all their actions, their metaphysical actions proposed or undertaken by NE, ought to be qualified in some fashion. And they end up being very qualify-y, full of disclaimers and qualifications. But on the other hand, and this is because their judging function, feeling, is one that provides them knowledge about impacts in the immediate context. So an ENFP's decisions regarding what to say or not to say in a social setting are going to be 100 million times better than the ENTP's if you're adjudicating those on achieving social grace as the metric. The reason for this is because while the ENFP doesn't judge first, their judging and perceiving functions occur concurrently, basically. That as they're perceiving possibilities, how they feel about those possibilities enters their awareness at the same time. So they're not subject to the same leap before you look quality that ENTPs are. ENTPs, even if they were to think about it some before they act, they're not INTPs, and they're not going to be willing to be patient enough to think it all through before making a decision. And they don't think that's very reliable anyway. ENTPs want to rely on their extroverted intuition to tell them what to do. But we really can't because it doesn't have any judgment. So we end up having to scramble. In contrast, ENFPs don't have to scramble like that. ENFPs are likely going to be getting along with people well because, one, their possibilities they're generating are going to mostly be along the lines of spiritual development, emotional well-being, stuff like that. Because, two, their judging function is real-time and it's introverted feeling oriented. Three, the way in which they do abstraction is externally to achieve outcomes, so they're likely to be the types that embrace a new diet or embrace a way of living or something like that that enables them to believe as though they are logically attaining the non-rational truths they understand through their judging function regarding the myriad possibilities of the world. It's a difficult type to be. Their judging function, their decision-making process is not well suited to working within a system that requires you to project out and anticipate how thinking systems will play out over time, which is basically what the world is. It doesn't require us to understand how feelings systems play out. So if it did require us to understand how feeling systems play out, then talking with French people would be a disastrous failure. Because on any objective level, I fail at attending to that aspect of things. But what I'm able to do to at least achieve some attraction to participants is, one, meta up about that and talk about that as a subject, and number two, I would hope provide insight that is better or different anyway, hopefully more resonant, more likely to have you go, oh, that's a really good idea, I haven't heard that before, and then say it to your friends later. I'd like to think that to the extent that I fail in some vectors, that I provide utility in that area. So that's the problem the ENFP is not going to so much worry about. They need to know that they're attending to their soul, one way or the other, and that it's possible to heal a soul, and that the healing of the soul involves understanding truths in the moment, relating well with one's body and with one's mood and things like that. They're not a conflicty kind of type. Okay, any thoughts on the ENFP personality type's decision-making process as articulated in the preceding few minutes of video, or as articulated elsewhere? Okay, then let's move on to the next type that's on the list, which is the ENFJ personality type. This is a type I feel I understand their decision-making process quite well, because Abraham's an ENFJ. Abraham's ENFJ-ness is what made me realize my ex-wife was not an ENFJ, she was an ESFJ, which is why we stayed together as long as we did. Had she been an ENFJ, we'd have split quickly, for sure, because ENFJ's decision-making process is they've got to work on it. They need to develop it a lot. Why? Well, let's look at their stack. Fe, Ni, Se, Ti. So they're okay with pulling the trigger, decent, aspirational about pulling the trigger. They want to make decisions. They want to launch stuff. They want to launch stuff that has meaningful, real impacts upon people in the real world. SE's in the third slot. Just like I want everyone to like me. They want to have a bunch of projects going. They got some problems. Number one, their NI truths that they get from the second slot, they use whole truths about the environment of others' emotions in which they exist. If you want to see an ENFJ be entirely crippled, make him work in isolation. Turn off the internet. They can't function except in concert with other individuals. They can't function except insofar as their behavior, their work, the stuff they're doing, plays in the only environment they know, the environment of their dominant function. It's the only environment I know as well. Metaphysical possibility. It's the environment I know. My other functions offer me tools. Only one function offers me an environment. And that's what FE is for the ENFJ. It's that individual's environment. And so if shit doesn't play in that environment, it's not relevant to them. So, for example, Abraham completed a work task for me, and we utilized that work task to make progress on something. But in the process, that part of that process involved tearing his thing that he made apart and changing it a bunch. At first, this bothered him a lot. And then I explained to him, Abraham, you did a great job. You gave me exactly what I needed. I'm really happy with this because I needed that stage done for me. The pre-work stage, where somebody gives us a model to work off of so we can analyze it, tear it apart, and adjust accordingly. I don't like working from scratch if I don't have to. I'd rather see what's wrong with something and go from there. So you actually did a fantastic job. Your work quality is not be judged on the fact that it didn't withstand this process, because this process is supposed to tear it apart. At that point, he seemed perfectly fine with the whole thing. He seemed happy because he's not attached to the work. He was bothered by the fact that others weren't celebrating what he had done and apparently weren't happy with what he had done. He was adjudicating that in a confusing way to him. T.I. was telling him, they don't look unhappy with me. I mean, F.E. was telling him they don't look unhappy with me, but T.I. was telling him in the fourth slot, but they're not using your work. They're changing it. They're fixing it. They're saying this is broken. That won't work. That means you did something wrong. Well, because T.I. is his fourth slot, and that kind of analysis is hard for him. So the decision-making process for the ENFJ, and the reason why the ENTP is the ENFJ's benefactor, is because from the ENTP's perspective, the ENFJ is a lost babe in the woods who's using SE badly. They're pulling the trigger at the wrong time on the wrong things because they're not projecting out well. They don't have NEs. They don't understand how these possibilities play out metaphysically over time. They're assuming that their projections about FE are accurate, and even if they are, they're assuming that that's the dominant paradigm, but it's not. There are bigger paradigms that cause the actual impacts to be predicted better through other modalities. And factoring FE concerns in can maximize or minimize the desired outcomes of the modality you choose, but they're not going to be determinant in whether the idea works or not. So that's the problem the ENFJ has. They want to be organizers. They want to put together big things and move and make shit happen. They have trouble sticking with a single plan because they're swayed when there's a lack of enthusiasm. They rely somewhat on the enthusiasm of others to carry them forward. That's one of the difficulties they have. So decision making is not so much a difficulty for ENFJ, but follow through can be a difficulty, and wise decision making can be a difficulty. And that's my perception of the ENFJ decision-making process. I'll pause now to offer any of the accumulated introverts an opportunity to say or type anything they wish. Okay, no comments on the Enfj. Thank you very much for watching Talking with Famous People. When I return, I'll do the next two types on the list, and I think I will make those two types the ESFJ and the ESTP. ESFJ, ESTP coming up. Thanks for watching Talking with Famous People.